My beloved brothers and sisters, so often we carry our fears the way a traveler carries stones, quietly, constantly, and without realizing how heavy they've become. We rush through our days holding tight to outcomes we can't control, forgetting that the one who created our path also carries it. Worry creeps in when we confuse our role with God's role. When we believe that everything depends on us, we crumble. But when we remember that nothing is beyond Him, we can finally breathe. Today, I want to ask you to pause, to step back from the noise, the pressure, the expectations, and to look at the truth that has always been there. You were never meant to carry the world alone. So tell me, why are you worried when the one who holds your heart also holds every answer? We live in a world that trains us to cling tightly to outcomes, expectations, timelines, people, and plans. We are taught from a young age that we must design our futures, script our stories, and micromanage every detail of our lives in order for them to turn out right. And because of this, we become people who grip too hard. We clutch at things never meant to be held with fists. We mistake control for safety and worry for responsibility. And so our hearts grow tired. Not because life is too heavy, but because we carry it in the wrong way. Every day worry whispers to us. It tells us that we must make everything work, that we cannot rest, that we must anticipate every possible outcome or disaster. It tells us that if we loosen our grip for even a moment, everything will fall apart. And so we live in a constant state of tension, our shoulders raised, our breath shallow, our minds racing. We call it being careful, being smart, or being prepared, but deep down it's fear wearing the mask of wisdom. But the truth is that most of the things we fear are illusions. Most of the things we try to control were never ours to hold. Most of the outcomes we obsess over cannot be shaped by our worry, no matter how hard we try, and yet we give away our peace as if it is a small price to pay for a sense of certainty. We forget that certainty was never promised to us, and it was never the goal. The goal was trust. The goal was surrender. Surrender is a word people often misunderstand. They see it as weakness, passivity, or giving up. But surrender is not collapsing in defeat. Surrender is standing in clarity. It is recognizing the difference between what belongs to you and what belongs to something far greater than you. It is knowing where your responsibility ends and where divine wisdom begins. It is allowing the world to be what it is without trying to twist it into what you think it should be. When you surrender the illusion of control, something extraordinary happens. You begin to breathe again. The tension in your chest loosens. Your thoughts become quieter. You stop trying to predict every twist of your journey. You begin to walk with more softness, more humility, more presence, because the moment you stop living as if everything depends on you is the moment you begin to finally live. But we resist surrender because we fear what will happen if we let go. Letting go feels like falling, like stepping into a place without guarantees. We prefer the illusion of control, even when it exhausts us, because at least it feels familiar. The unknown feels frightening. The idea that we are not in full control of our own lives feels destabilizing. But the irony is that surrender does not destabilize us, it stabilizes us. It anchors us in something more constant than our anxieties, more reliable than our plans, more loving than our fears. Why are you worried? Because you believe it is your job to hold the universe in place. You believe it is your job to make everything perfect. You believe that the outcomes of your efforts lie entirely in your hands. But ask yourself, has your worry ever truly protected you? Has your sleeplessness ever rewritten a decree? Has your fear ever altered something already destined for you? Has your anxiety ever pushed away what was meant to happen or forced into existence something not written for you? You know the answer? Worry does not change the future, it only steals the present. It steals your clarity, your joy, your gratitude, your ability to see beauty in what is happening right now. When you live consumed by what might happen, you no longer see what is happening. And most of the time, what is happening is not nearly as frightening as your imagination makes it. The storm is smaller than the shadow it casts in your mind. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that their strength alone cannot carry them. This realization often comes through hardship, illness, heartbreak, loss, uncertainty, disappointment. In those moments, we realize how fragile our plans are and how limited our power is. But these moments are not meant to break us. They are meant to free us. They are meant to guide us back to surrender, back to humility, back to remembering that control was never ours to begin with. Sometimes the things we worry about the most are the things that ultimately bring us the most growth. Sometimes the situations we fear the most carry the greatest wisdom. Sometimes the doors that close are the ones protecting us from harm. But when we cling too tightly to our expectations, we cannot see the blessings disguised as detours. We cannot see the wisdom wrapped inside the uncertainty. We cannot see the mercy hidden beneath the disappointment. When we surrender the illusion of control, we begin to see with new eyes. We begin to recognize that not everything that hurts us is meant to harm us. Not everything that scares us is meant to break us. Not everything that confuses us is meant to mislead us. Sometimes confusion is simply the fog before clarity. Sometimes fear is the doorway to courage. Sometimes loss is the clearing before growth. And sometimes worry is the invitation to trust in a way we never have before. There is a stillness inside you that worry tries to drown out. But that stillness is where your strength lives. It is where your intuition lives. It is where your connection to the divine lives. If you sit with yourself long enough, if you silence the noise around you, if you stop feeding your fears with attention, you will feel that stillness again. And in that stillness, you will realize that surrender is not a loss. It is a return to alignment, to peace, to trust, to truth. Letting go is not easy. It takes courage to loosen your grip on the things you believe define your security. It takes courage to trust a plan you cannot see. It takes courage to move through your life without trying to script every moment. But the more you practice letting go, the more natural it becomes. You begin to trust the timing of your life. You begin to trust the process of unfolding. You begin to trust that what is meant for you cannot be taken from you, and what is not meant for you cannot be forced to stay. Worry tricks you into believing that you must fight for everything, but surrender teaches you that what is written for you is already on its way, and what is not written for you will never bring you peace. Worry tells you that you must chase certainty. But surrender tells you that you must chase truth. Worry tells you that you must hold everything together. But surrender tells you that you are already held. When you let go of the illusion of control, you begin to see life differently. You begin to appreciate the small moments. You begin to slow down. You begin to notice things you once overlooked. The kindness of a stranger, the beauty of ordinary days, the gentle ways life tries to support you, even when you are too distracted to see it. You begin to feel gratitude again. You begin to feel connected again. You begin to feel alive again. The truth is, worry comes from a place of love. You worry because you care. You worry because you want things to work out. You worry because you have hopes and dreams and you fear losing them. But love was never meant to be driven by fear. Love flourishes in trust. Love expands in surrender. Love grows in the spaces where anxiety loosens its grip. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most at peace. They were not moments when everything was perfect. They were moments when you trusted, moments when you let go, moments when you stopped fighting, moments when you allowed life to unfold without trying to manipulate its direction. Those are the moments your soul is asking you to return to. Those are the moments that remind you who you are, when fear is not leading the way. Worry may feel familiar, but peace is your home. Peace is your natural state. Peace is what comes when you align your heart with truth. Peace is what comes when you realize that your job is effort, not outcome. Your job is intention, not control. Your job is to plant seeds, not to force them to grow. Your job is to trust the one who brings life to the seeds. There is beauty in releasing the weight you were never meant to carry. There is freedom in admitting that you do not know everything. There is strength in choosing faith over fear. There is wisdom in recognizing that control is an illusion that only drains you. And there is peace in knowing that you can do your best while leaving the rest to something far greater. If you look at the most peaceful people in the world, you will notice one thing. It is not that their lives are easier than yours. It is that they have learned to let go. They have learned to move through life without gripping too tightly. They have learned to trust the unseen, to believe in the timing of events, to surrender outcomes with an open heart. They have learned that surrender is not about abandoning effort. It is about placing effort in the right place. It is about aligning with wisdom rather than struggling with fear. You can learn this too. Peace is not reserved for a select few. Peace is available to anyone willing to release the illusion of control, anyone willing to soften their grip, anyone willing to trust that they are not walking through life alone, anyone willing to stop carrying burdens that do not belong to them, anyone willing to loosen the knots in their heart and allow life to unfold in its own rhythm. Why are you worried? Because you have forgotten what is holding you. And when you remember that, worry loses its power, fear loosens its grip, and the illusion of control dissolves like mist under the morning sun. When the soul forgets what carries it, it begins to shake. It begins to tremble under the weight of life, under the pressure of expectations, under the uncertainty of tomorrow. It begins to feel fragile, restless, easily shaken by the slightest change in circumstances. But when the soul remembers what holds it, when it reconnects with the one who has always been carrying it, even when it didn't notice, something profound happens. A steadiness settles in the heart. A quiet strength begins to rise, and the storms that once overwhelmed you suddenly lose their power, not because the storms are smaller, but because the one holding you is greater. Why are you worried? Why does your heart race at the thought of what might go wrong? Why does your mind rehearse every possible disaster? Why do you live as though you are carrying your life alone? The truth is simple, yet often forgotten. You were never meant to be your own anchor. You were never meant to hold yourself together by sheer force. You were never meant to be the one who keeps every door open, every relationship intact, every outcome aligned, every fear silenced. That was never your job. That burden does not belong to you. The one who created your soul is the one who carries it. The one who knows your path is the one who guides it. The one who shaped your heart is the one who steadies it. And yet we forget. We get lost in our deadlines and checklists and responsibilities. We get consumed by our insecurities and assumptions and fears. We start believing that steadiness comes from control. And when control slips through our fingers, as it inevitably does, we crumble. But the soul was never designed to stand by controlling. It was designed to stand by remembering. Remembering the source. Remembering the sustainer. Remembering the one who holds the world effortlessly and still has room to hold your heart. There are moments in life when everything feels unsteady. You feel like the ground beneath you is shifting, like the people you relied on are slipping away, like the plans you made are unraveling. You feel the ache of uncertainty in your chest. The kind that wakes you up at night, the kind that makes you question your strength, the kind that makes you doubt your path. It is in these moments that the illusion becomes clear that all along you were leaning too heavily on things that cannot hold your weight. You leaned on people who are human and flawed. You leaned on plans that were temporary. You leaned on circumstances that were fragile. And when they moved, you fell with them. But when the soul leans on the one who never moves, the soul does not fall, even when life twists, even when circumstances shift, even when the unexpected happens. Stability comes from memory, the memory of who sustains you, who sees you, who knows the details of your life more intimately than you ever could. When the heart remembers this, a kind of peace settles inside that nothing external can shake. The soul becomes unsteady when it forgets its anchor. And the soul becomes steady again the moment it remembers. But remembrance is not simply an act of the tongue. It is not just phrases repeated without presence. It is not a ritual of words. Remembrance is a state of awareness, a state of connectedness, a recognition that you are not moving through life unaided. It is the awareness that your heart is being held even when you are not conscious of it. It is the awareness that every breath you take is sustained by a force greater than your fear. It is the awareness that what appears chaotic to you is part of a design that is perfectly measured. When you remember this, even painful experiences begin to look different. You begin to see meaning where you once saw misfortune. You begin to see wisdom where you once saw only loss. You begin to see protection where you once saw rejection, because everything is carried by the one who knows you better than you know yourself. And the soul finds steadiness not in having an easy life, but in remembering who orchestrates all things with precision and mercy. There is a comfort that flows into the heart when it remembers the one who carries it. It is a comfort that does not erase hardship, but softens it. It does not remove challenges, but puts them into perspective. It does not erase uncertainty, but places it in trustworthy hands. It does not eliminate fear entirely, but silences its power. Because when you know who is carrying you, the journey becomes easier to bear. The weight becomes lighter. The unknown becomes less terrifying. The setbacks become less defining. The disappointments become less consuming. Have you ever observed a child who walks beside a parent on a busy street? The world around them is loud, unpredictable, full of dangers they do not understand. Yet the child walks with ease, without anxiety, without fear, without trying to calculate every possible risk. Why? Because their hand is in the hand of someone they trust completely. They do not need to understand the chaos around them because they trust the one guiding them through it. They are steady, not because the world is safe, but because the one holding them is reliable. Your soul is that child, and the one who carries you is far more capable, far more loving, far more aware than any human guardian could ever be. When you remember this, your inner world changes. The noise becomes background. The fear fades to a whisper. The uncertainty becomes a place of curiosity rather than panic. You walk the same world, but you walk differently. You walk lighter. You walk steadier. You walk with the quiet assurance that you are not alone. There are times when we feel abandoned by life. Times when prayers seem unanswered. Times when the path ahead feels dark. Times when we question whether anyone sees us. But these are the moments the soul is invited to remember the countless times it was carried through things it thought it would never survive, to remember the moments it found strength when it felt utterly broken, to remember the times when the way opened just when it seemed impossible, to remember that every breath you have taken until now is a sign that you were never left unsupported. Memory is medicine for the heart. When you consciously remember the one who carries you, you begin to recognize signs of guidance where before you saw only coincidence. You begin to notice how things fall into place in ways you could never orchestrate. You begin to feel gratitude for moments that once felt painful because now you see what they protected you from. You begin to trust the timing of your journey more deeply. You begin to walk with the kind of steadiness that comes not from certainty about the future, but from certainty about who holds the future. The soul becomes steady, not through perfect circumstances, but through perfect reliance. It becomes steady not when life becomes easy, but when the heart becomes anchored. It becomes steady not when there is nothing to fear, but when fear loses its authority. And this happens through remembrance, through reconnecting with the one who has always carried you, even when your steps felt unsteady. Think of all the times you worried yourself sick over something that eventually resolved in a way you did not expect. Think of all the nights you cried over uncertainties that later made sense. Think of all the moments you felt lost only to find out later that you were being redirected. Think of all the things you begged for that would have broken you had you received them. Think of the times you felt delayed only to discover you were being protected. The soul needs only to remember these moments to find steadiness again. There is a kind of peace that comes when the soul remembers who carries it. A peace that does not depend on circumstances. A peace that sits quietly inside you, even when the world outside is chaotic. a peace that reassures you even when nothing looks certain, a peace that whispers, you are safe, you are guided, you are held, a peace that does not shake when things around you shake because it is rooted in the one who never changes. The soul finds steadiness when it remembers who carries it, and this remembrance becomes a way of walking through life. It becomes the filter through which you see every challenge, every setback, every moment of confusion. You begin to ask not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? You begin to see hardships not as punishments but as pathways. You begin to see obstacles not as barriers but as redirections. You begin to see delays not as denials but as divine timing. And this shift in perspective is what steadies the soul more than anything else. When the soul forgets, fear becomes loud. When the soul remembers, fear becomes quiet. When the soul forgets, everything feels urgent. When the soul remembers, everything finds its place. When the soul forgets, the world feels overwhelming. When the soul remembers, the world becomes manageable. When the soul forgets, the heart becomes restless. When the soul remembers, the heart becomes still. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of trust. Stillness does not mean a life without challenges. It means a heart that knows where to return when challenges arise. Stillness is the soul's posture when it feels held. Stillness is the softening of your grip when you realize you don't need to hold everything together. Stillness is the letting go of worry when you understand that the one carrying you does not fail. And the soul craves this stillness. It longs for it. It aches for the assurance that everything will be okay, even if it doesn't look okay right now. It yearns for the reminder that life is not random, that the twists and turns are not meaningless, that the pain is not purposeless, that the journey is not unaccompanied, that every moment, yes, even the hardest ones, is carried, guided, woven with wisdom you may not yet see. The steadiness you seek does not come from knowing what will happen. It comes from knowing who is guiding what will happen. It comes from shifting your reliance from yourself to the one who knows you better than you know yourself. It comes from releasing the belief that you must have everything under control and embracing the reality that you are held by the one who controls everything with perfection. There is a quiet power in remembering this, a power that strengthens without hardening, a power that softens without weakening, a power that calms without dulling your emotions, a power that roots you deeply in faith while allowing you to walk lightly through uncertainty, a power that helps you breathe even when life is pressing on your chest, a power that reminds you that you are never alone in your fear, never alone in your confusion, never alone in your journey. The soul finds steadiness when it remembers who carries it. And in that remembrance, you will find not only peace, but strength, not only comfort, but courage, not only relief, but resilience, not only calm, but clarity, not only acceptance, but transformation. And the journey that once felt overwhelming becomes one you can walk with grace, with trust, and with the beautiful confidence that you are carried in every step you take.